No, you can't present these. I'm presenting these. Don't be silly. What are you doing? Give those back. You'll have to forgive us, folks. We're both kind of anxious and the pride levels are really high right now. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor, everybody. I am revisiting a video I made 5 years ago. One of the first videos I made, or in the series of first videos I made, and one of the most viewed videos on this channel. That video is called My 8 Favorite Colors. Well, I am revisiting that today. Only I've got 10 colors for you and a big surprise. Without any more fol-de-rah and fiddle-dee-dee, let's get to it. So many of you who are familiar with this channel will remember this from last year. This was the Daniel Smith pan palette that I and Darren over at Wet Paint in Minnesota put together. These are hand-filled, just out of tubes, and they could customize those palettes for various vendors such as Wet Paint. And it was a limited edition thing. These are not available anymore. This was just a wonderful experience for me. It's something I'd never done before, is commercially pick a palette. I feel like it's very versatile for all sorts of painting situations. But it is hand poured, it is pan paint. So when this was over, Darren and I got to talking. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing some of these details. But I knew that if I got involved with this sort of thing again, I would like to have a product that was actually endorsed or at least put together at the manufacturer level. He and I were talking. I said, well, if there were ever a product I would do that with, it would be my favorite, which is M. Graham. He quickly said, I'll make the introduction for you because I know the lady over there. And lo and behold, as I've had experience now in choosing a palette of colors, I've seen what other artists have used successfully, what I like to go back to time and time again. I've had 5 more years of just, what do I reach for? What do I grab? And why? As I mentioned in that original video, color choices are very personal. Those original 8 are still colors I use, are still, every one of them is still on my palette. But as I tried to apply the experience that I've gained in the last 5 years, I decided on these colors as a good base set for the way I teach mixing, for the colors that I like in terms of how to mix for this, how to mix for that, how to paint this. 10 is a good number for a limited palette, for a starting out palette. In fact, some professional artists use a lot less than 10. But it's also a palette you can build on a little bit if you want. Now, just as I did in that video 5 years ago, this comes with a heavy disclaimer, and that is favorite does not mean best. Let me say that again. Favorite does not mean best. Favorite means something that I've gotten used to using. They've been useful for me. I have lots of other palettes and other brands. It also should tell you that you can come up with a set of colors on your own when you've gained a little experience that just kind of matches you, your ideas, your thoughts. This is available exclusively, again, through Wet Paint. You're probably tired of hearing me say it, but I'm very proud of these colors in this selection. This is something I can teach from, and indeed I will be producing a series of videos where I give you tips and ideas for using these colors and how to use them. And hopefully this set will be available as an ongoing product, but we'll see. Anyway, again, I'm so thankful to Darren at Wet Paint. I'm so thankful to Marty in the beginning, for Marty Owings for making the introductions, getting the ball rolling on this stuff. I'm thankful for Judy Rubisky at M. Graham, who was just so kind working with me on this idea, putting together a proposal, just listening to my pitch. I mean, for doing this, it was just all very exciting. Let's get into this. Let's just review each of the colors one by one, and we'll take it from there. And then I even have a suggestion for how to set up a palette. If this is your first set, or you want to start a palette and set of colors with these, I've got a suggestion for how to do that. One of the chief features of this palette is it's a split primary palette. Now, a split primary palette just takes each primary color. I call them primary zones because you're going to see in one case the Ultramarine and Phthalo Green blue shade are really not both blues, but they're close enough in the zone to be useful. But we have three primary zones: yellow, blue, and red. And what you do in a split primary palette situation is you split each primary into a warm and cool version. So yellow has been split into a warm and cool version, Azo Yellow being the cool version, Indian Yellow being the warm, red, Scarlet Pyrrol being the warm version, Quinacridone Rose being the cool version, blue, Ultramarine blue. Now Phthalo green is actually a green, but it's sort of an aqua blue leaning green, and it's a wider split, but in this scheme with Azo Green being a green secondary, it actually fits in very well for mixing. So I'm calling that the blue split, Ultramarine being a warm leaning blue and Phthalo green definitely leaning cool. Then Azo Green as a secondary, Dioxazine purple as a secondary. Those have been two very useful colors for me in landscape. And then my one sort of earthy tone is transparent red iron oxide. That's just been an extremely useful color for me. I do a ton with that color. One of the videos I'm going to make is how to make browns or how to make earth tones out of this palette. And then finally, neutral tint. And this is something I just have discovered the usefulness of over the last 5 years versus something like Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray used to be more of a go-to for a gray, but I prefer neutral tint, and of all the neutral tints out there, I prefer N-grams by far. It's just a really beautiful, transparent dark. Doesn't have an opaque pigment in it at all like Payne's Gray does. So what are some of the other features of this set? Well, number one, 100% of these colors, every one of these colors, are rated as fully transparent. There are no opaques or semi-transparent in there. Because I typically like to glaze from time to time, I like a transparent set. And that makes for clean, bright glazes. Opaque colors tend to muddy up a little easier. Another feature of this set is they are all single pigment colors with the exception of neutral tint. Another great feature is, and this will be a video at some point, I'll show you how to mix some great darks, but neutral tint also makes a pretty decent black. So there we go. I will list all these colors below in case you just want to fill in some existing colors that you have. Don't have a need to buy a full set. If you are interested in buying this, I want you to go to Wet Paint and check the price. That is subject to change. I'm not going to mention price here. It's very reasonable for a set of 10 tubes. Just go over there and check it out. All right, so if this set is something that you're starting with and you're wanting an idea for how to set up a palette with it and then maybe add to that palette something expandable, or how to set up a palette so that it maximizes your mixing potential, this is just an idea in case you've never set up a palette before or you just want to try something new. Now these palettes, Magello I think is a company that normally makes and markets these, but I've seen them under a number of different names, like this one. I really like this palette. This is my core palette. These are all core colors. I went through 24 weeks of classes using this because it was an easy palette to carry to class. It was very compact. It has a lot of mixing area though, so it's a nice palette. I also like it because it's got ramped wells, which is something I prefer rather than just a smaller set well. It's small enough that it could be used as a plein air palette if you wanted to. It holds 18 colors, and the way I set it up is this. Let me just go through quickly. I went from cool around the color wheel until I got to these Phthalo green blue shade, and I'm just skipping pans in case you wanted to add another blue, for instance, or you wanted to add a different green that's in between these on the color wheel. Same here. Again, Ultramarine blue, Phthalo green blue shade. This is Azo Green. This is Azo Yellow. So we're heading around the color wheel. Indian Yellow. Then, so I've kept these splits together, mainly just because it worked out best that way in this palette. And for me personally, it's unlikely if I expanded this palette that I would add colors between those. I'm more likely to add them here. So here's the red split: Scarlet Pyrrol, Quinacridone Rose, Dioxazine Purple, Transparent Red Iron Oxide, and lastly, Neutral Tint. On the color wheel, really, Transparent Red Iron Oxide would probably go down here. It's just darker, but I tend to keep it down here because I would mix that way more from earth tones, would be in the same region. So there's a number of things you could do then if you wanted to expand this palette. You wouldn't have to. You could keep these extra empty ramps as mixing wells. You could add a cerulean blue here, or a cobalt blue. Over here you could add a Payne's gray, maybe a sepia. If you prefer using earth pigments, you could add like a raw sienna or yellow ochre. You could add a different violet here if you wanted to. You've got room for other yellows. If you're a floral painter and you paint a lot of brilliant flowers, you could expand on this color selection. Maybe an olive green. So just possibilities there. But this is how I set it up, and it just hopefully will give you food for thought. Since these are all on my main studio palette, but I wanted to have a palette that just had these colors. As I'm teaching you how to use these and ways in which you can use these colors, I wanted to have a palette that just utilizes those colors to keep everything clear in an instructional sense. So if you have any questions about all this, I hope you will just put them in the comments. Thanks everyone. I so appreciate you watching and listening, and I really look forward to doing more demos with these colors and giving you some tips and techniques for mixing. Thank you to patrons for supporting this channel as always, and we'll see everybody in the next video.